It's time again to recap the latest news from the solar PV industry, compiled by the American Solar Energy Society. I'm Jay Warmke with SolarPVTraining.com, and this is what's happening in the world of solar for the week of September 15th. Now, one of the largest solar plus storage microgrids is currently under construction deep in the heart of what was formerly coal country. Powin Energy Company, a utility-scale battery manufacturer, has teamed up with BHE Renewables, which is the renewable energy arm of Berkshire Hathaway Energy, to construct a 50-megawatt battery energy storage system that will be paired with an 106-megawatt solar array to form a microgrid that will supply Titanium Metals Corporation with renewable energy to manufacture titanium products for the global aerospace industry. Now, all of this is taking place near Ravenswood, West Virginia, which is a small town of around 4,000 people, located about 30 miles southwest of Parkersburg, West Virginia, right along the Ohio River. This installation marks one of Powin's first projects to meet domestic content requirements of the IRA, or the Inflation Reduction Act. It's set to begin producing power in 2025, with full production hitting its peak in 2027. Donald Trump has pledged last Thursday that he will rescind any unspent funds under the Inflation Reduction Act if he's elected in November. He referred to the incentives incorporated in the IRA as, quote, a waste of money, and that he referred to the IRA as the Green New Scam. Now, in 2 years under the IRA, the solar industry has added 75 gigawatts of new capacity to the grid, representing about 36% of all of the solar that's ever been installed in the United States. An analysis in April by Politico found that of the $145 billion that was allocated in the IRA as direct funding for energy and climate programs, the Biden administration has only announced about $60 billion of it in tentative funding decisions. In the first half of 2024, solar installations in the U.S. increased 29% over the same time period a year ago, according to a recent report by the Solar Energy Industries Association, or CEA. Now, solar accounted for about 67% of all new electric generating capacity added to the U.S. grid in the first half of 2024. Wind and battery storage accounted for an additional 27%. Fossil fuels, and specifically natural gas, only accounted for 2% of all of the new electric generating capacity added to the grid during the last 6 months. Texas was the leading state for solar installations in the first half of the year, with 5.5 gigawatts coming online, which was nearly twice as much the capacity as second-ranked Florida. While commercial and utility scale systems are booming, the residential segment of the solar industry market continued to decline. Now, this is largely the result of changes in California's net metering policy that took place last April that actually reduce the amount that utilities pay customers for sending power back to the grid by about 75%. Now, the implementation of NEM 3.0 resulted in a decline in California residential installations of between 57 and 85%, according to the California Solar and Storage Association. Now, prior to NEM 3.0, California accounted for about a third of all of the solar residential installations taking place nationwide. Now, the dramatic decline in California has had a knock-on effect for the rest of the country, where nationwide residential installations are anticipated to decline in the neighborhood of around 19% compared to the same time period in 2023. The impressive rise of U.S. solar manufacturing capacity may actually be a case of good news, bad news. Now, the good news is that the solar module manufacturing capacity in the U.S. now exceeds 31 gigawatts. That's nearly a four-fold increase over what existed as far as manufacturing capacity before the IRA was enacted. Much of the growth of this domestic manufacturing is the result of the provision within the IRA that sets aside a 10% additional tax credit if you use domestically manufactured products. Now, the bad news is for those who wish to develop an American-based manufacturing supply chain, a large portion of this U.S. manufacturing will actually be done by Chinese companies. Chinese companies will have at least 20 gigawatts worth of annual solar panel production coming online within the United States by next year. That's enough to serve about half of the U.S. domestic solar installation requirements, according to Reuters. Now, Chinese firms that are building manufacturing plants here in the U.S. include companies such as Jinko Solar, Trina Solar, JA Solar, Longi, and Boviet. Now, Chinese-backed companies have a significant competitive advantage over manufacturing companies from other nations. This includes a heavily subsidized supply chain of polysilicon and unfinished solar cells coming from China, and also heavily subsidized and low-cost government financing for these facilities. An energy research firm, Wood Mackenzie, has forecast that just 52% of the 112 gigawatts of U.S. module manufacturing that has been announced by companies, this capacity that's been announced, will come online by the target date of 2026. A number of companies have announced that the plans for building these manufacturing facilities have been canceled. For example, Swiss solar panel manufacturing company Meyer Burger recently announced that a planned 2 gigawatt facility that they were going to be building in Colorado at a former Intel semiconductor plant would actually be canceled. Now, they cited high interest rates as well as competition from very low-cost solar modules coming from China. In fact, globally, the solar industry has seen a 26% decline in the price of solar modules over the past year. Largely due to these low-cost Chinese manufactured panels, this according to S&P Global Commodity Insights. And that is the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.